Good morning, everyone. I'm going to say that again. Good morning, everyone. My name is Martha Perry, and I am a very proud trustee with the National Coalition of Girls' Schools. It is a pleasure to welcome you back this morning for another day of outstanding speakers and workshops at our Global Forum. In a moment, we'll hear from one of our platinum sponsors, one of over 30 sponsors and exhibitors who have very generously contributed to and supported the Global Forum. Please do ensure that you make time to go and meet with these folks on the 6th floor foyer and check out all of the amazing programs, products, and services that they offer. The success of this conference is as a result of hard work and in large part due to these sponsors. One such sponsor is the Mariposa DR Foundation, a platinum sponsor. At this time, it is my great pleasure to ask Bessie Spears to come forward to welcome Patricia Suriel from the Mariposa DR Foundation. Bessie is a former NCGS trustee, former head at Ethel Walker School, and currently head at Tower Hill School. Bessie.
Thank you, Martha. It is a privilege to return home to a group whose care and interest in girls and young women runs deep and is visceral. Having attended an all-girls school and having headed a girls' school for 8 years, I know our work intimately, and as a now head of a co-ed school, my passion remains steadfast in helping both boys and girls understand the power of educating girls. I am proud to be a current trustee and board member of the Mariposa Foundation and a former board member of NCGS. When I was at Ethel Walker, being involved with Mariposa was, quite frankly, a life-changing opportunity for our students, for me, and our faculty. So introducing you to Tricia, our executive director of Mariposa, this morning feels like finally introducing old friends or cousins who have never met. Patricia Suriel has been passionate about alleviating poverty in the Dominican Republic since 1992. She received the Outstanding Citizen Award from the U.S. Embassy in the Dominican Republic, and after serving the Cabarete community and advocating for equal access to quality education for more than 15 years, Suriel recognized a critical need for innovative programs specifically for girls. In 2009, Suriel founded the Mariposa DR Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to educating and empowering girls to end generational poverty. And today, the Mariposa Center for Girls in Cabarete, the DR, serves more than 150 girls ages 8 to 21 and their families, and she has hosted over 2,000 international visitors who are eager to learn more about Mariposa's work. I am so excited to introduce Tricia and have her meet some of my favorite educators in the world in this room and have you meet her. She is quite frankly a visionary who makes really important things happen. Tricia.
Thank you, Bessie, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you all, Megan and Jen, for letting us say a few words here today. Often when I present about the Dominican Republic and Mariposa, I notice people wondering, what is that blonde woman doing representing the Dominican Republic? So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about how I became very Dominican myself. I come from a family of great educators. My great-grandfather was the father of educational psychology, Edward Lee Thorndike. My mother and father and grandparents went to great institutions like Harvard and Cornell and Stanford. And I myself barely graduated from high school. You see, they didn't know what dyslexia was in the 80s and in the 70s. And things like, or terms like place-based learning and service learning and experiential learning just didn't exist. And so As a dyslexic, we learned quickly how to negotiate, and I did negotiate my way out of high school. And when my friends were heading off to college, I went to Vail, Colorado. And from Vail, I went on to travel the world. And I climbed high mountains in the Himalayas and trekked in the outback of Australia and the beaches of India, studied Spanish in Guatemala, and I ultimately landed on an island called Hispaniola in 1992. Hispaniola is an island that is shared both by Haiti and the Dominican Republic. It's the home to the highest mountain in the Dominican Republic, the oldest city in the New World, and frankly, one of the most beautiful places that I had ever been. And my travels stopped there. I fell madly in love with the country. I fell in love with a man I married. We had children. But it was not hard to ignore and see all around you the poverty that existed. And through my adventure travel company that I began, it was also easy to go into schools and classrooms and to see that there was nothing there. There were no books, there were no pens, often there were no teachers at all. And the other thing that was very evident is that no one was doing anything about it. So I saw a window of opportunity. And I took it. And with my adventure travel company and some friends and clients and volunteers, we built our town the first library. And from there, we went on to build more classrooms. And by the 2008, we had built over 30 classrooms in surrounding towns, libraries, community centers. But we still we weren't quite finished. The poverty wasn't ending. And so in 2009, we began the work for the Mariposa Foundation. We saw that the girls were not coming to the program still. And what we did see as we began our work was that educating girls was a silver bullet and clearly was the key to lifting families out of poverty. So standing next to me today is my co-founder, and I couldn't have done all this without her by my side. And here she is again. She's going to just tell you a few words about what we're doing today and why we're here and hoping that you will join us. Jessica.
Thank you, Tricia. My name is Jessica Lawson, and I'm the co-founder of the Mariposa DR Foundation. Oops. I met Tricia on a spring break trip to Cabarete 13 years ago as a student at Dartmouth College. She inspired me to volunteer after I graduated, and it ultimately changed the course of my entire life. Being a city girl from downtown Chicago, living in the Dominican Republic, and being around extreme poverty was the last thing in life I ever thought I would do. Together, we started Mariposa in 2009 with just a small group of 12 girls. We met in churches, restaurants, shaded areas on the beach, really any place where we could find a safe space. In 2010, we ran the first all-girls summer camp in our town with 40 girls, and the immediate results were astounding. Shortly after, we rented a small apartment and became a hub for girls in our community. People started to notice what we were doing. Not only were we empowering the young girls by showing them that they mattered, we were changing the way their families perceived them and ultimately creating a new generation of female leaders. Just 3 years ago, one of our biggest dreams came true. We were able to purchase this beautiful piece of beachfront property to create the Mariposa Center for Girls. And we're here today in front of all of you because we want you to join us. We want you to join us in creating the world's first girl museum. We imagine an interactive learning campus where volunteers, educators, students, tourists, and girl champions from all over the globe will visit and learn more about the history and impact of the worldwide girl movement. We don't want to build our dream in isolation in the Dominican Republic. We want to work with all of you. We know that you have resources and global experiences, and likely most of our girls will never get visas to travel to other countries. We need you to partner with us and bring your girls to work with us in co-creating this vision. We need a lot of help, and we've got more information to share with you about how you can get involved. So I hope you visit us at Table 21 in the exhibit hall.
We just have a 60-second video. We couldn't get visas to bring all of our girls, and so they made a 60-second video to present to you, hoping that you'll also, as educators, know that the kind of school that we want to build and the kind of girl museum and center that we're hoping to build needs to be furnished with love. So here they are, the Mariposa Girls video.
I like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow up on trees and honeybees and snow white turtle doves. I like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I like to see the world for once all standing hand in hand and hear the echo through the hills for peace throughout the land. I like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I like to teach the world to sing.
Thank you very much, Tricia and Jessica. Well, good morning. I would like to thank the NCGS for giving us the wonderful opportunity, we are the Girls' Schools Association from the UK, to be one of the Global Forum's strategic partners. The GSA represents over 150 independent girls' schools in the UK, and for several years we've worked closely with the NCGS, with colleagues attending conferences both in the US and in the UK. It's a huge pleasure for me as president this year to lead a party of 23 UK delegates representing 16 different girls' schools here to New York City and your conference. We are very keen to strengthen our links with all your different schools and associations across the world. The theme that I have chosen this year as president is to focus on the global opportunities for our girls in our schools, and therefore the opportunity for us to kick off this year in coming here has been a fantastic start. However, if you would like to continue exploring global links, then I do urge you to consider coming to our GSA conference in Oxford, which will be in November this year, when we can carry on the conversation. Do have a chat with me or any of our other delegation if you'd like to find out more. It is GSA's great privilege to host Baroness Sue Campbell of the Youth Sports Trust at this conference. The Baroness was chair of the UK Sport and presided over Team GB during the period leading up to and during London 2012, during which the UK achieved the largest Olympic medal haul in living memory. She herself represented the UK as an international sportswoman, but her background is also in education. She trained as a PE teacher and taught in schools and lectured in universities. As chair of the Youth Sports Trust, she has directed the work of the charity, and a large focus on what they're doing is to look at the opportunities and the challenges for girls in sport. And this work is not only UK-based, they aim to create international opportunities for young people to enable them to realise their potential in our global society. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Baroness Sue Campbell.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much indeed for this really a great privilege to have the opportunity to speak to you. Particularly, I'd like to say thank you for coming after last night's Super Bowl, because I'm sure you were all watching the Broncos do their thing last night. So thank you all very much for being here so early. Can I add my thanks to the NCGS for hosting such a remarkable conference of international delegates from all over the world with the same passion and the same commitment to girls' education. But particularly a thank you to the GSA, who are partners of ours in the UK, but who are very, very gracious inviting me here and whose hospitality has been fantastic. And I'd also like to say to Tricia and Jessica, congratulations on all you're doing. I can only imagine how tough it has been. I think it's tough where I am, establishing a charity and giving it wings to fly, but you've done a fantastic job, so congratulations to both of you. So just a little about the Youth Sport Trust and how it fits with all the discussions that you're having over these 3 days. We're 21 years old, and I was its first chief executive in 1995. My passion, helping to build a brighter future for young people, using the tool that I understand most, physical education, sport, and physical activity. But my ambition is clearly one of education. So although I may have presided over the UK's medal hall, that isn't my focus with you today, or indeed my passion and my purpose on a daily basis. What do we know? Well, here at the Youth Sport Trust, we know that health, wellness underpin academic achievement and performance. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Because sometimes we can take that very for granted, that physical activity alone is a tool for school improvement. But if you have skilled teachers, it's even more powerful. We've very much focused on girls as leaders, ensuring that young women see themselves as leaders through sport, but more importantly, in life. Gaining that confidence to stand up and speak in front of a group. Gaining that inspiration that they can provide to one another. Leadership has been a huge part of the work we've done. The other big part of our work has been to work with our very gifted and talented teachers, both in the UK and in 63 countries around the world. We've worked in areas of development, and we've worked in large number of countries in the developing world. But the same message goes through wherever you work. It is the quality of the teaching. It is the quality of the teacher, the coach, the leader, that enables any tool, whatever subject you're working with, to empower, engage, and help young women to grow. So we've invested massively in professional development in India, in Brazil, across the globe, and all across the UK. And the other thing that we're very passionate about is networking excellence. And again, that was on the slide yesterday about what this whole conference is about and why you've come. Networking people across the globe who share your passion, who are committed day in and day out to make the world a better place for young women. And the one way we've done that is we've built a membership that is global now. We have nearly 5,000 members networking together, talking to one another. And if any of you want to be part of that network, we'd be delighted to embrace you and to bring you on board. We find excellence sits with the practitioner, not with people sitting in our charity, but with the practitioner. And being able to share that great practice is really important. So over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to try to talk you through the approach that we've taken, which I hope might be useful and most of all inspirational for you in terms of what you could do as you leave this conference in the next few days. So, what are the big issues facing our young people? There are many. And I won't linger on this too long because I don't want this to be all about challenge. I want it to be about solution. But let's remember that we are now entering a very different generation. A generation that has had the digital world thrust upon them from a very early age. They are the digital generation. And we have a very interesting neuroscientist in Britain called Susan Greenfield. And she's done some very, very fascinating work around how this digital world, the fact that young people in the developed world spend hours every single day on a screen, how does that affect the brain? More importantly, how does it affect young people's ability to relate to one another? You know, you talk to young people today and they have this gadget attached in their hand, and you ask them how many friends they've got, and they'll tell you 400. but you'll ask when they last spoke to one of them, they can't remember. When did they last put their arm around them when they were feeling low and down? When did they demonstrate that compassion? When did they inspire one another to do better things? We know about cyberbullying. We understand many of the issues that the digital world brings us, and believe me, it's not going away. But we've got to provide a balance to that world for our young women, or we will lose them in an isolated virtual world which they can't escape from. We have to break out of that. And that's why great educators ensure a rounded, balanced education offer for every young person. Whether that's art or music or sport or culture, it's vitally important. And as head teachers, the pressure on you is exam results, exam scores, test scores. But as educators, don't let's ever lose sight that we need to produce rounded young women who can achieve in school, but more importantly, I think, in life. We have the issues of obesity in the developed world. We're seeing obesity growing at an incredible rate. 1/3 of our children at 11 are now categorized as fat or obese. 1/3. What kind of future do they have? And to counterbalance that, we have this obsession with how we look. Girls are obsessed with how they look. A recent survey in the UK showed that the biggest worry for 8-year-old girls, is how they look. I don't know what your biggest worry was when you were 8. My biggest worry was tearing my trousers falling down trees. It certainly wasn't looking at how I felt and how I looked. I was out there playing, enjoying life, getting on with things. The world is changing dramatically, and we have to find the counterbalance to some of these things. If we're going to give girls that confidence we want them to have, and you know, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about yourself physically, is hugely important to how you feel about yourself in the world at large. And the other big issue for all of us is this emergence of emotional illness. Today, in our news briefings that we get through on our email, head teachers across Britain are now really concerned about the emotional challenges we're facing. Young women who are self-harming, young women who are thinking about suicide, young women who've got anorexia and bulimia. That emotional illness, not just the physical illness, are growing. So we need to educate young people that feeling physically well and emotionally well is a platform for doing well. And that's going to be my premise for today. The other thing we did, which I think is a really interesting piece of work, and you can access it on our website, is we did a study to look at what will young people in 2035 be like. It is a really interesting piece of work done by a Future Foundation, looking at global trends and trying to understand what the child of 2035 is going to be like. And what basically it says is if we do not intervene, if we do not change some of these patterns, these lifestyle habits, we are going to see a very strange and isolated group of young people. So today, I'm asking you to just think about those issues when we're dealing with that wider education in our schools. So here's the problem. Right now in the UK, 21% of boys and only 16% of girls. And I'm asking you to think now not about sporty girls, not about the girls that are in your teams. I'm asking you to think about the others. 16% only doing daily levels of physical activity. And look what it says about 2035 unless we intervene. That's going to drop by 35%. Does that matter to you as educators? You bet it does. You bet it does. Because look at this slide. And this isn't stuff I've conjured up. This is highly researched. That brain, cognitive skills, cognitive ability, brain function, brain structure are all affected by our physical activity. Fine motor skills, just holding a pen in your hand or a pencil. Working on a computer. All of those things are affected by our physical capability. And look at the one on the, as you look at it, on the right. You know, that young people who have physical obesity issues will do less well in your examination structure on the average. So should this matter to you? Yes, absolutely it matters to you. So here's my thesis for you. Really simple proposition. First of all, we need to make sure that all young women, not the sporty ones, they'll find their way, but all young women are physically literate. I'm going to talk a little minute about what that is, and active. In other words, they're engaged in a lifestyle choice that builds physical activity. And by the way, I've been immensely impressed with how many of you have been going to the gym at 5, 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning. I jet lag has something to say for it because it gets you in the gym. But seriously, I think, do you build physical activity into your daily lifestyle? You know, when you're stressed and you're really emotionally uptight, go for a walk. You'll find it has a huge impact on how you feel about yourself. But if we get all young people physically literate and active, then how are we using that? Do you see that as an educational tool, or do you just see it as a lifestyle thing? I believe it's an educational tool. If we get kids physically literate and active, we can begin to develop some of those characteristics which will help them be successful in life. And the 4 we've chosen at the Youth Sport Trust, and in each school it may be different, are creativity, aspiration, resilience, and empathy. If I asked you now to think about the girls in your school, and I said, parking exams for 1 minute, what kind of young women do you want to leave your school? I'm sure those 4 words would come somewhere in your list. You want young women that can be creative, don't follow the norm, have the courage to step out from the pack. You want young women that have aspirations. And I heard yesterday that we mustn't be pushing aspirations at kids in order to make sure that we don't frighten them away from ambition. But I want kids who are aspirational. I want them to have hope that they can change the world, just like Jessica is doing in the Dominican Republic. I believe in that. We want resilient young women. Believe me, the journey of life is a tough one. You all know that. And for some of our young women, it's a very tough one. Life isn't simple. We need them to be resilient. And my goodness, do we need empathy in this world that we live in? This global world of fighting and confusion and hatred. We need to develop empathy. And if we can do that, give kids, young people, young women, a strong sense of well-being, a strong sense of who they are in the world, they will go on to be leaders and they will go on to achieve. So let's take each of those in turn. Creativity. What do I mean by it? Curiosity, resourcefulness, critical thinking, hunger to achieve. How do you deliver that through physical education and physical activity? And when does it need to begin? Well, I believe it needs to begin very early in a child's life. Any of you that have had children, and any of you that have looked after grandchildren, one of the biggest challenges is they're always moving about. They crawl, they pick things up they shouldn't, they put it in their mouth, off they go again, you shut the door. My mother told me that she found me walking down the hall to meet her when I was just a toddler. I'd broken out my pen and was walking down the hall to meet her. It's reality. Young people move. But the moment you get them in school, what do you say to them? Sit down, be still, be quiet. Think about it. Could we create active classrooms? Classrooms where young people build physical activity into their daily lives. They can still be studying. But why do we think everybody has to sit still to learn? Learning is exploratory. It's about being curious. It is about crawling around. Do you still crawl around? Do you still have that curiosity? Do you still feel good about who you are physically? And if we're going to do this, we believe that you have to build a competent mover. And what do I mean by competent mover? Well, most of you understand what physical activity is. It's moving. But if we're educators, moving's not enough, is it? We've got to use that movement to help develop what we want to see in young people. So we've developed the thinking mover, the creative mover, the social mover, the confident mover, and the healthy mover. If those were the ambitions for our physical activity, physical education, sport programs, that they were fully inclusive of every young person, not just those who are sporty, can we use that movement to develop those physically literate skills? And one of the challenges that teachers set us was, how on earth do you measure that impact? You're talking about it, we get it. We need professional development to support us with it, and we're rolling out professional development into all our primary schools. For those who want that interpreted, 5 years to 11 years in education. We're rolling out professional development, but we've also developed a tool that allows the participant, the parent, the educator to actually record and manage the impact of this learning. It's called Skills to Achieve, and it's a really powerful tool to encourage the young person to see how they can progress, to help the teacher understand how to track progression, and to do that really, really important job of getting the parent to join us on the journey. So thinking about creativity starts very early, and we need to continue using this subject of ours, of physical education and sport and physical activity, to drive creativity. Aspiration. You probably don't know who that is. She's an aspirational person. That is Nicola Adams. She won the first ever boxing medal for women in the Olympics. Women's boxing had not been in the Olympics. Why do I use her as an aspirational role model? We use a lot of women as aspirational role models. And this one is particularly interesting. When Nicola wanted to start boxing, she went to join a boxing club, and she was told, there's no girls come here. You don't have girls. So do you know what she did? She waited outside and boxed them when they left. She found her own boxing ring. And then she was told, you've got to get a lot stronger. You're not strong enough. So they started to actually encourage the boys to go outside and do a round with her and then come back in, believe it or not. And you need to get stronger. She couldn't afford a gym. She had no money. So she joined a building site, and she offered to carry the bricks from the bottom of the ladder to the top of the ladder all day long. The guys thought she was remarkable, and they loved her. And she got stronger and stronger. And then the Olympics decided to include women's boxing, funding flowed, Nicola came into a proper gym, trained properly, developed her skills, and was the first woman to win an Olympic medal. Isn't that an inspirational story for any girl, whatever their ambition? Whatever you want to be, a great musician, a great doctor, a great architect. Isn't that journey a wonderful example of nothing stops me if I really want to do it? Isn't aspiration such an important part of helping girls fulfill their dreams, be the best that they can be? Look at those words, hope. You know, we listened to Gloria yesterday, who I thought was completely remarkable, telling us in some countries there is so little hope for women. We live in this amazing world where we can give women hope, not just about themselves, but for a cause much bigger than themselves. Hope for women across the globe. Building optimism. We can change the world. We will change the world. Ambition, determination, combined with that wonderful quality that's so important, humility and personal responsibility. So how do we use our sports programs to do that? We're working with the GSA in England and across all of our state schools as well to try to help young women develop strong leadership skills. I've seen so many people over the last few days talk about that. It's a really key part, I think, of women fulfilling their personal best and their aspirations. If we want girls to lead the way, we have to put them in a very safe environment to learn what leading the way looks like. And learn that leading the way is not about you, it's about your followers. And that leading is not about telling, it's about asking. And leading is about inspiring. And we have leadership programs to encourage girls in the safety of a sport, physical activity, physical education environment to begin to lead. We even do leadership work with our 10, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. Playground leadership, helping young girls to lead. And just to give you an international example, when we developed the PE curriculum in India, we put it in the hands of women teachers. It absolutely changed and transformed the way that women were looked at in those communities. Leadership, but it needs to be learnt, and it needs to be learnt and understood. It's no good just giving people leadership positions. Learning about leadership, learning what it really means, learning how to develop it, vitally, vitally important. And of course, the other word that goes with it is massive confidence. Resilience. I talked about it a little earlier. You know that we all hit bumps on the road, and boy, I've hit some whoppers. You know, on any journey that you're on, I've had this desire, this passion to change the world. The only tool I really understood to do it with was physical education, sport and physical activity. I don't think for a moment it's the only tool, but it's the tool I understood. But my goodness, a lot of people didn't agree with me. A lot of people didn't follow me. I had all those wonderful moments with politicians who didn't know what the dickens I was talking about. I've been kicked back, kicked down. But you know, there's something I heard when I was very young. And it said, it doesn't matter if you get knocked down 7 times, as long as you get up 8. How good are we at teaching this resilience? How often do those expectations we place around girls mean that they perceive they fail way too early in a process? There is no such thing in my language as failure. There's a learning opportunity. It isn't a failure, it's a learning opportunity. And we have to help young people understand that things don't go your way straight away. It doesn't do what you want it to do. You have to work at it. And sometimes, in the best will in the world, it doesn't work for you. This is Hannah Cockcroft. Hannah Cockcroft went to school in one of our normal state schools in Britain. When it came to PE, she got sent to the library. Easier than handling her in the PE class. Too difficult. And at the age of 12, a neighbour actually invited her to a wheelchair basketball game. And she went along and she started to play. And then through a whole set of coincidences, she arrives at the door of the Youth Sport Trust. And we worked with her. She's now a double Paralympic, double world champion and heading off to Rio. She took some blows. And you want perseverance, you want determination, you want somebody that's prepared to take risks and has the courage and conviction, you talk to Hannah. I'll tell you a little story. She, building up to the IPC World Championships, there was an American athlete who was perceived to be better than her. Or at least that was the message she was getting. And that person wasn't coming to the competition she was in. She got herself on a flight. She went out, she came out here to the USA, and she beat that woman. Why? Because she wanted to show her who was boss. That's her words, okay? That's real courage. Mental toughness. How do we develop it? And how do we use PE, sport, physical activity to do that? We've just developed 2 programs, one called Personal Best and one called Getting to the Start Line, where we're really helping to look at this whole business of how we use physical education with 11 to 14-year-old girls to help develop resilience. They're still doing hockey, they're still doing all the recognised sports, but the outcome of the lesson, and remember we're not talking sport, we're talking education, the outcome of the lesson is, yes, of course, we want them to develop their skills, but have they developed and understood determination? Have they developed and understood resilience? Are we helping them take risks and understand what taking risks look like? And are we helping them develop courage? And getting to the start line is about helping young people manage emotions as they go into those examinations and tests that we put them into. Think about an athlete who trains for 4 years to succeed into Olympic or Paralympic Games. And they walk out on their most important moment of their life in front of 90,000 people. And at that moment in history, they've got to produce their absolute personal best. How do we help girls learn from how they manage that emotion, how they manage themselves, how they develop those skills that allow them to walk out there and on that given day be the best that they can be? Don't we want that for every single girl? When we put them into those pressurized situations, don't we want to see them rise to the top? Of course we do. I think PE and sport can help with those things. It can provide a very safe environment to learn those things. And finally, empathy. And I love this picture, actually, because I love her face. She was actually on the Leading the Way girls programme that we ran with GSA. But I just love the expression on her face. We had a programme called Girls Active, where we brought in girls who were least active in school. And I meant physically active, but also least active in terms of engagement in education. And we looked at trying to develop their relationships with one another. I found it terrifying that 300 girls didn't know how to look at you, or smile at you, or even say good morning. I know many of you are in schools where that is daily practice, and I understand that. But how are we really developing relationships, respect, tolerance, and compassion? Those people skills. Remember what I said about the digital world? Think about all of the pressures we put on young people. Are we really helping to develop that empathetic approach to each other? And those of you who are working with girls will know this to be absolutely true. One of the things we did was we had a look at why weren't girls active? And I think any of you can say you can find research that tells you they don't like the clothing, they don't like getting their hair messed up, they hate the showers because they smell, they don't want to be naked in front of other people as their bodies change. There's a million reasons, we get it. But what we wanted to know was all those people that work with young people, the marketing people that are so brilliant at selling them all sorts of things, how do they work? And the simple lesson, you probably know it very well, that the most powerful people working with girls is girls. The most powerful move that we saw was when we took young women themselves, took them out of their group, trained them to be leaders and put them back in. The impact we've had on some of these young women is incredible. And I'm not talking about them becoming physically active. That was just a doorway. These women have become engaged and successful. 75% of these young women that people had written off are now back and fully engaged in education. So think of physical education, sport and physical activity as an intervention tool, as an education tool, not just a lifestyle choice, not just something some girls can do and some girls can't. That's not how we need to think if we're really going to give young women the chance to succeed in life. So there's my proposition. It's not complicated. PE, you can put in the middle of that. You can put sport, you can put physical activity. It's about leadership, it's about well-being, and it's about achievement. And my plea to you today is to take away some of these thoughts And as good as many of your programs will be, ask yourself, do they cater for every girl? Do they inspire every girl? Do they develop creative, aspirational, resilient and empathetic young women? Or do they just produce hockey players? Because if it's the second, you might win some cups, but you won't have educated anybody. And I think it's too easy for us to drop into winning and sport. And for kids like me, thank you, because that's all I cared about. But for 75% of our girls, that's not going to do it. We need to reach those girls. We need to help them. And I think this is a tool to do it. And finally, I'll finish with two things that Gloria said yesterday. And may I repeat, I felt very privileged to be in a room with someone who at 81 has the most extraordinary essence I've seen. She had such a determination in her, such passion still for all she believes in. Gosh, I hope I'm alive at 81. Who knows? And secondly, I hope I have one half of that passion and that I can project like she did yesterday. But she left us with two great messages, and I'm going to leave you with the same two messages. Somebody asked her, what were the things you'd say to young people? And she said, listen more than you talk. Ask questions. Think about those girls I'm talking about. Don't you find the solution. Work with them, to talk to them, to ask questions, to find out what their solution is. Not what your solution is, what their solution is. Because believe me, they'll have some thoughts. They may not sit comfortably sometimes with yours, but they will have their own views on how we do some of this. And secondly, she said, behave as if everything matters. We can take sport, physical education, and physical activity for granted. But it matters. It truly matters. It matters to young women in terms of their education, in terms of their life chances, and in terms of a future generation. Thank you very much for letting me share my thoughts with you this morning. Thank you.
I think it's safe to say, Baroness Campbell, that you do have that essence as well. And while I know that Gloria is 81, I think that you have just championed a cause that we know is important, but you've articulated it so beautifully. I thank you so much for your inspirational message. And for us, the notion of every girl being important, I think as schools we can think of ourselves as coaches, and that our school is in essence a team, and that those players, in this case our girls, are who we guide and coach with the ultimate desire to send them off to a game of life. So thank you so much for those words. And again, a huge thank you to the GSA. What a privilege and a wonderful opportunity for us to have Baroness Sue Campbell with us. So thank you both very, very much. I just want to remind you again about all of our sponsors who've all generously supported this conference. And just a little heads up, one of our sponsors, Bleachers, is doing live video taping of all of our keynote addresses and some featured speakers, and they have very kindly, they will make these as an opportunity for free download to members of the NCGS and partnering organizations. So, and you can learn more about that and what they do at their table on the 6th floor. And at this time, uncharacteristically, we're going to ask you to leave the ballroom. We're going to be setting up in this room for our Inspire sessions, and numbers and space are at a premium. So thank you in advance for your assistance, and have a wonderful day, everyone.